Sinem, you're very welcome on the podcast today. It's great to have you here. We've obviously been chatting before at different times online and through things like Substack as well. But you're very welcome here today. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good. It's good to have you. Sinem, can we start off just by you telling me a little bit about yourself? So I know a little bit about you obviously already, but can you tell our audience who are listening or watching right now, a bit about your background, about your family, and family life, work life, all that sort of thing, and where you're from? So we'll start with that.
My name is Sinem Günel. I am based in Vienna, Austria. My name is Turkish, so my family is from Turkey originally. I was born here, grew up here, stayed here because I like it. Apart from very cold winters, that's when I usually travel and go to slightly warmer places. I studied business. I didn't really have a specific idea on what I want to do when I grew up. But I did know when I was younger, I thought I'd know that I wanted to have a typical corporate job, climb the corporate ladder. But then I started to go to entrepreneurship and startup events when I was studying at university, and I realized this whole entrepreneurship thing actually sounds very, very exciting. And I started my first business when I was 20 years old, still studying. I did still do an internship at a huge corporate because I said I want to give it a shot. I want to see how it goes. And it was horrible from the first day. So it was just a confirmation about being on the right path for me. And yeah, I tried lots of different things until I figured out what I really wanted to do. Started to write on the internet in 2018, did it as a side project for 2 years, and then I realized that's what I really wanted to do, and I went all in on that.
Awesome. Brilliant. And yeah, and obviously a major component of all that is Medium, which we're going to come to now. You're obviously a big name on Medium. You've got an 80,000 person following, and that's expanded into the Medium Writing Academy, which you also run. Tell me, Sam, a little bit about how you got into Medium and how did you acquire this audience of that size? What kind of things did you do on a regular, consistent basis that helped you build this almost six-figure sized audience on one single platform like that?
Um, I'd like to actually start by sharing I never thought of writing or writing as a career option. I have always loved to learn and to pass on knowledge. So my first business was all about that. We did workshops, in-person workshops for 15 to 20 people, and that was when I was still studying myself. And all we did was we did those workshops together with guest experts on various topics that we thought are missing in school systems or even in universities that students aren't being taught.
Hmm.
Um, so it was a lot of it was personal development, finance, and also just skills that would help you no matter what kind of career path you choose.
Hmm.
So I was preparing all those workshops and trainings for 2 years. And then my partner Philip came across a YouTube video explaining what Medium is. And he said, "Hey, you might like this." I first thought I don't have time for that because I was studying, I was working full time, and I was running the workshop business. But then I did look into it, and it really did capture my attention because it looked so simple. For those of you who don't know Medium, it's basically a blogging platform. If you're familiar with Substack, Medium is very simple compared to Substack. When I moved from Medium to Substack, I was kind of overwhelmed because you can do so much on Substack. You have so many different features and options and community and collaboration. You don't have any of that on Medium. You basically publish articles. That's pretty much all you can do. And that's what I did. Like I took my workshop content to over to Medium. So every time I would create a presentation, I would either take the entire topic or bits and pieces of it and publish an article about it.
Hmm.
And when I had that internship, I didn't have a lot to do at that job. So I spent a lot of time dissecting what top writers were doing. I
Mm.
remember sitting at my desk, not having anything to do because nobody cared about giving me anything to do at that internship. So I would print out articles of top writers and I would have my highlighter and I would literally, I would learn what they were doing and trying to understand why they were doing it. And that's what I believe helped me most. I'm not a talented writer. I'm not an especially creative writer.
Now, come
But
on.
I,
That's not true. You're definitely a
no, but
talented
I think
writer.
there are people who are naturally better at writing or have a better understanding, a kind of gut feeling. For me, it was really just learning how it works on the internet.
Mm.
But it was a lot of um, like I had a very clear learning process. I didn't just write and publish hoping for it to work. I tried to really learn from those who have been ahead of me.
Mm.
And that worked really well because Medium had a very clear pattern of what the audience wanted, what the algorithm wanted.
Yeah.
And it was like looking back, it was I think it was easy to figure out, or like I had so much time to invest into it that it felt easy because I didn't like that was all I did at that time.
Mm.
I was really excited about it. And of course, when something works, you get even more excited about it. You continue, you try to add your own spin to it.
Mm.
And that's what I did for the first, I would say, 3 years.
Okay. And the funny thing is now people are probably reading your writing and they're learning from you. So that's kind of flipped now a little bit where you're kind of in that position and people are taking what you've done and learning from it. And that's fascinating, Cinnamon, and just shows you that if you do put the effort in and you take the time to dissect things and really study your craft, you can become a really top writer on the internet or just in general. And yeah, I want to go back to that and say that you said you're not a talented writer, but you definitely are a very talented writer, and you deserve the success you've got in terms of that for sure. And tell me a bit about the Medium Writing Academy. So, did you and Philip start that together?
Yeah, we started the Medium Writing Academy. Basically because when I decided to write full time, and that was January 2020, like end of 2019, beginning of 2020. And then I think 3 months later, the first lockdowns happened here in Austria. So I had a lot more time to write. And I don't know how it was in Ireland, for example, but what happened here is a lot of local communities started to do webinars,
Mm.
local communities that we were part of as well. So they invited people to speak to each other. So the lockdowns wouldn't feel so depressing. And I was sharing my writing on Instagram and just my private social channels. I didn't have a following anywhere else, but I was just sharing it with my friends, family, people I knew. And I got invited to speak at 2 or 3 of such webinars, local events. Again, I think 20 people or so. And then there were some people who had known me from other events or university, and they got really interested and they said, "Hey, I have a lot of time in my hands now. Can you help me? Like, how should I get started?"
Mm.
And Philip is like in our business. uh, Again, for those who don't know us, Philip is my fiance and my business partner. We run the business together. Um, I am the writer and the overthinker. Philip is much more of an action taker and moving much faster than I usually feel comfortable with. So Philip said, "Okay, let's do a quick, PDF. Let's create an offer, a coaching offer for those people." And I think we charged $500 for, I don't know, 10 coaching calls or so. After every coaching call, we would basically work on a curriculum. How could we turn this into something that requires less one-on-one and more video content? We did
Mm.
that with a few people we knew personally, and that's basically how it started. And it has then evolved into what I'm very confident about, the best program about starting and growing on your audience on Medium. And that's mostly because I've been able to connect with so many brilliant people, talk to most of the people who did really well on the platform. I'm a publication editor, a Boost nominator. I've been in close touch with the Medium team, and that has allowed me to have a really realistic outlook on what writers should do and what they shouldn't do.
Mm,
And you know that from Substack, right? There is a lot of rumors, a lot of lies, a lot of misconceptions about what you should be doing versus what really moves the needle. And I would actually say that it's been even worse on Medium.
all right.
You can waste so much time going into Facebook groups, sharing your articles, hoping that a few people will see it.
Mm,
And we've been able to build a program that has delivered really amazing results for our clients over the past 4 years now.
good. Yeah, and I've seen that happen in terms of Facebook groups, as you mentioned there, and a lot of the sort of stuff that really doesn't move the needle in terms of, reciprocity, sharing articles and that sort of thing, and doesn't really work. And it's great that you guys have put together a curriculum that actually helps people do that. How do you, I just want to go back to what you said about your process. How do you take a conversation with somebody, like a one-on-one kind of chat and a coaching call, and then turn that into like a section, for instance, in a webinar or in a curriculum? How do you translate that conversation into like an actionable course module or whatever? What's your process for that?
Um,
Is it literally just you take what they said and kind of dissect it and then like answer the questions that they had and break it
yeah,
down, or yeah,
I mean, you usually start with a curriculum based on what you have in your mind, right? What you think is needed.
yeah,
But those one-on-one calls and conversations can be really useful to point to specific questions people have.
mm,
And that might not be obvious to you as the coach, because it's been a very long time you've been at that stage of the journey, right?
yeah,
So I guess it's less about building the curriculum based on the conversations, but constantly refining it based on conversations.
yeah,
That's what we do it like through our email conversations, through the feedback we collect in every single cohort. That's really useful because it helps me be sure that what we're teaching is not based on 2020, but it's actually what people should do right now and what people
mm,
want to know right now.
yeah,
Um, and that one-on-one conversation part is still very important to me. And I
yeah,
always like to mention I read every single newsletter reply that we get
mm,
because I believe that's like very few people compared to list sizes reply to email newsletters, right? But the ones that do, they can tell you a lot about what your audience wants to know, what they're curious about, and
mm,
that's really valuable.
yeah,
And we keep going back to that, and trying to make sure that we're always covering everything that is relevant and that is actually making a difference for writers.
yeah. Something I always encourage people to do is to reply to newsletter editions that they get, because I know myself sending newsletters out, sometimes you feel like you're talking into the void and you don't know if anybody actually likes what you're saying, but there's nothing better than if you get a response via email saying this was good, or I disagreed with this, or tell me more about this, because it helps you understand your audience better, as you say. Um, and yeah, and I love that, Sinem, what you're saying about how you kind of keep your content up to date and you kind of refine it through what's relevant now. And there's a lot of courses out there that were relevant 4 or 5 years ago that aren't really so much anymore. And you have to kind of stay on top of stuff, don't you? Because everything changes so much all the time. Like in the time I've been a Medium, which is only really just over a year for me, it's changed so much in terms of how it works and how you actually make money and get visibility on the platform. So I think unless we stay on top of those things as creators, you can very easily fall behind, and that doesn't serve our audience very well. Um, in terms of Medium, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who had just discovered it now in 2024? They just come across it for the first time and they want to get started. What would you advise them to do?
If you are brand new, the one of the first things you should look at are publications. Think of publications as mini magazines on Medium. Some are large, some are small. They're usually focused on specific topics. Um, or it's better to go with the ones that are specific, because a publication usually has its own following, and you publishing in that publication means you can make use of the publication's existing following,
Mm,
ideally. Um, Publications usually have application processes. This means you have to adjust your content, the formatting at least, to the publication's guidelines, and usually those guidelines make sense.
mm,
They align with Medium's guidelines, and you're better off following them than just doing it the way it feels right for you. So if you're brand new and you do some research on how to get into publications, it's going to be a bit harder and slower, but it's going to be an effective process.
mm,
Other than that, if you are not like brand new, but you're just starting out in Medium, it's your first year, or you're starting over, what I believe is really important right now is there are two options I see right now. And I actually want to write a deep dive about this because I think it's not very, very commonly known. Um, and I'm saying this again as someone who is editing one of Medium's largest publications and is a Boost nominator. You
mm,
have two options on Medium right now. You go for the Boost, which is Medium's strongest distribution system right now, which is a human curation system.
yeah,
So humans nominate and then decide whether your story gets boosted or not. If it does get boosted, it has a much higher chance of reaching thousands, tens of thousands of readers.
mm,
But most importantly, even if it doesn't reach tens of thousands of readers, you are making more money off of boosted stories.
mm,
That's just how earnings are distributed right now. So one option is you go for boosting and you try to optimize for boosting with every single story you write. You write for publications that are part of the Boost program. You familiarize yourself with the guidelines. You try to be very personal,
mm,
do all the things they tell you to do, and then ideally most of the time it will work. Sometimes it won't.
yeah,
Nobody has 100% boost rate. The basically opposite that also works is you ignore the boost and you go for a more edgier, maybe even slightly polarizing angle, and you aim for algorithmic distribution.
mm,
In that case, you currently have a higher likelihood of your articles performing more consistently.
mhm,
Your chance of reaching, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of readers is less, and you will make far less money through the partner program. But this option is more exciting for people who have their email lists and who are targeting a specific audience
mm,
and who know how they want to monetize that audience externally or the
yeah,
attention externally.
yeah.
Those are the two big options and opportunities that I see on Medium right now.
Okay, that's really good advice. And as a Boost nominator and a publication editor, what kind of writing would catch your eye? So say someone sends something through, submitted a piece to your publication, what would make you stop and say, I really like this piece, I want to consider publishing this?
I'm managing a marketing publication, so
Mm,
everything I say will be related to that kind of content. I love to see personal case studies. You've
mm,
done something, it has worked or it hasn't, doesn't matter, but you've learned something valuable that you're passing on to your readers.
mm,
What goes wrong with that kind of content is usually that it's very generic and basic. So, for example, if you submit an article that goes like, how I gained 100 Substack followers or subscribers in 3 months, I will not be excited about it because it's not really an exciting achievement that I believe you can learn a lot from or that you should aim to replicate, because there are people who've probably had way more success and can share more valuable insights. It
mm,
sounds very harsh, but basically something that is fresh and that sounds fascinating or useful.
yeah.
Um,
Mm,
or kind of like what I love to see as well, which is a bit trickier with boosting, is also just generally interesting case studies of other brands or people that you're following. If you are going the extra mile and you are really dissecting more information than what people see on the surface level, that is really exciting content too. And there's a lot in marketing. I've been thinking about that for a while, just putting up a list of ideas that I think would be really exciting articles,
Hmm.
and seeing if people end up writing them. Because I think some writers do better when you tell them what to write. It's not what I advise. It's not what I want my students to do. But in marketing, there is so much exciting stuff happening. And usually, when there is a big event like the Super Bowl or elections, people think when they write something timely, it's automatically going to be exciting or going to perform well. And that's rarely the case because then they rush through the
Hmm.
article, and I get 5 very bad submissions on the same topic in a day, and I end up not publishing any of them because just because it's timely doesn't mean it's worth publishing.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure you're going to get a lot of those kind of publication or those submissions quite soon over the next wee while because of the election and things like that that's happening. And Sinem, so you've been a medium for a few years now, and you've really nailed that pretty much. Why did you and Philip decide to join Substack? So what drew you to Substack, and how have you found the journey there so far?
I mean, honestly, Michael Simmons has convinced me to give it a shot. I connected with Michael, I think, over a year ago for the first time, and he and Tom Tigler were preparing to launch the first edition of their Substack Campfire
Hmm.
cohort. And he asked me what was going on in Medium and whether I have looked into Substack. And I actually did have a Substack newsletter back in 2020 when I first started to teach about writing, I started the newsletter on Substack.
Okay.
And then I had a paid Substack again, I think a year later with 3 other writers. So I have been on the platform before, but I didn't understand how I could leverage it over the last 3 years
Yeah.
or the last 12 months even. And I think I've been a really annoying friend. Yeah, I told Michael, I don't understand how it's going to be an addition to what I do. And I told him I'm not excited about the possible subscription payments, and I don't see how it can possibly be a leverage for everything that we're already doing.
Hmm.
And I think we've been on 3 calls. Philip has been excited about it, but we eventually decided to give it a go because there's been a lot of amazing people in the cohort, and
Hmm.
yeah, sometimes you just have to get yourself a little uncomfortable. That's basically what I did. But
Yeah.
I had so many questions because I knew if I do it, I want to go all in.
Hmm.
Like I hate the feeling of trying something half-heartedly and not really being committed to it.
Hmm.
And that's basically what we did. And the most interesting part about it from the beginning was notes for me because I've been thinking about writing short form content for years,
Hmm.
but I couldn't get myself to write on Twitter or LinkedIn. I don't use those platforms as a user, and I didn't want to be a creator on them either.
Hmm.
And notes felt like a refreshing opportunity to make use of short form.
Yeah, I agree. I think Notes is a real game changer for me as well. I'm gonna be doing like a boot camp thing next week with Christina God about that, so that'll be cool. Looking forward to doing that. But yeah, Notes was a real totally changed the total trajectory of my time on Substack back at the end of last year, and I'm really glad to have it. And obviously I'm really glad to have you guys on Substack now as well. It was cool whenever you joined properly and got really into it. You've really been a big asset, I think, to the platform. Um, where do you kind of see your publication going over the next few years? So where would you like to see Write Build Scale go on Substack in the next sort of maybe 5 years?
I would love the publication to be kind of a go-to hub for new writers.
Mm.
based on the content we create that is free or behind the paywall. But then beyond that, I would love for it to be an enabler for us to connect with people who are beyond that beginner stage
Mm.
so we can help them more on the business side of writing.
Okay.
Because that's basically what we did in our business over the last years is building offers, building products, building different monetization options so
Mm.
you are not dependent on a single source of income or a single
Yeah.
product, a single client whatsoever.
Mm.
And I think Substack is making it very easy right now for people to connect to those one-on-one conversations.
Mm.
And that's the biggest opportunity I see for us.
Yeah.
Getting in touch with people who are all in and who want our support. And we so far what we did was courses or our membership where we meet with a small group of people every single week. But I can see us shifting more into a done for you option where because we're realizing more and more that some people they know their next step is to launch their newsletter and a freebie or a first paid product, and they think about it for a year before they do it. And part of it is because you have so many options. And even if we tell them, hey, use this tool and do this, they still don't do it
Yeah.
fast. And I think uh, that's a solution we can provide relatively easily right now, where we say, okay, we have intensive sessions. We meet up with a writer for 3 hours and we get it done. We set it all up and then it's live,
Mm.
it's running,
Yeah.
and then we can think about the next steps.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Actually, I think that is definitely a point that a lot of writers trip up when they get to that stage. That they get the information, they're told what to do, they're told how to do it, but it's just getting the motivation to kind of take that extra step and actually do it. Like I've spoken spoken to people, excuse me, over the course of time and told them what to do and kind of coached them a little bit towards doing certain things. They kind of say they're all in and it's great, I'm gonna do this, I'm really excited, and then it gets to that point and then they just don't do it, and you're like, why? Why don't you just do it? Like take that extra step. But yeah, I think it's interesting actually because I don't know if Philip was telling me about this on Monday or it was somebody else talking about the done for you kind of version of it all. But that seems to be really exciting, really interesting way of doing things now and offering that kind of service instead of just giving people information, but you actually help them take that extra step, which is really cool. Um, it's something that my wife and I have actually talked about in terms of writing books. We talked about maybe creating a kind of hybrid book publishing press where we help people not just get their books published, but actually show them how to market them and go through that entire process as well, because it's so important. And so many authors either just don't know how to do it, or they don't want to do it, or they think somebody else is going to do it for them. So we would love to take authors on board in a kind of hybrid system and teach them how to market their books and how to get them out there and that sort of way. So that's something we're kind of thinking about doing possibly as well. But yeah, and I love what you guys are doing. Like I love Write Build Scale. I love what you're doing on notes as well. Like you and Philip show up all the time, and you're very active, and there's a real community feel around what you're doing, which I love because I love the community aspect of Substack. And even last night, I was doing a call with some of our paid members, and there's only maybe like 5 or 6 people there at the time, but it was great, and the conversation was really nice, and everybody was just really bouncing off each other and learning, and I love that. That's how I think newsletters grow and survive long term. They build community around what they're doing. So it's really exciting. And Sinem, in terms of just for you as a writer, beyond Substack, beyond Medium, beyond everything else, could you see yourself doing anything different with your writing in the future? Could you see yourself writing books or doing something like longer form like that in the future?
I don't have anything specific in mind, but I would like to challenge myself over the next 12 months to just write more um,
Mm.
different kind of content than I've done so far. I guess more on the opinionated side of content creation and business or the creator economy as a whole.
Mm.
That's what I want to do. A lot of what I've written over the last 2 years was instructional or how I did XYZ.
Mm.
Um, so that's a new challenge that I want to set for myself, but I don't have a book project or anything similar in mind, at
Fair
least
enough.
in the short run.
It's something you could definitely do though if you wanted to. And I want to ask as well, I forgot to send you this question in advance, but I meant to ask you about YouTube as well. So you've been on YouTube for a while and you have a really good sized audience there. Um, in terms of writers who want to utilize YouTube, what would you advise that they do in order to promote their writing on that platform? So like something I'm kind of playing around with at the minute as well. And I take, snippets of these conversations, like little sort of 4 or 5 minute bits and put them onto YouTube and I've seen that work to some extent. I've seen like my audience growing a little bit, and obviously it's tiny compared to yours. But what would you advise other writers to do in terms of YouTube or just video or social media platforms in general to connect with their readers?
Yeah. I mean that's tricky because a lot of writers they don't want to be on video. They don't want to do a lot of the social media marketing, right? And for me,
Mm,
YouTube, I think that's a real kind of unfair advantage because the reason we started the YouTube channel is we realized people are actually looking up my name in the YouTube search bar. And we wanted our own videos to show up if somebody would search
mm,
for me on YouTube. And I never, like, we batch produced a couple of videos, and I think we did that like 4 times or so. We don't have a ton of original videos on YouTube. A lot of them are just streams of interviews or sessions I did for other platforms. So it's not been a strategic approach, to be completely honest. It just it worked so well because people were looking up,
yeah.
wanting to see if I was on YouTube. Um,
Mm,
I think if you are writing educational content, or even if it's not educational, but you can turn it into video, then I guess the best thing you can do is if you can utilize your writing as some form of a first draft of a script for a video.
mm,
But if I were to approach that strategically, I guess I would want to batch those kinds of tasks because video is so different
mm,
compared to writing. It takes up so much more time and energy, a different kind of energy, in my opinion.
yeah.
Um, so I would want to batch produce and
Mm,
yeah, just have a proper system in place so that the writing is the first step to the video content.
mm, yeah.
Other than that, I think it's really important that you enjoy the channels you're on.
Mm,
So if you, I don't think I would have been able to do well on LinkedIn or Twitter if I hated the platforms. And the same with Instagram or any other place.
mm,
I think that's really brilliant about Substack is you see people being really creative about how they're promoting their work. Like I've seen um
mm,
this woman, I don't remember her name, but I think she is writing her book in chapters on Substack, and she's doing like videos which are basically you see images and she has voiceovers reading an excerpt of her chapter and then she's sending people to Substack,
mm,
and that has apparently worked really well for her, which is a really creative workaround. We've seen the same happening on TikTok.
yeah.
You just have, I think that's the key. Like you have to enjoy experimenting and being on these channels. Otherwise, it's going to suck. And I don't think anyone can do well on a platform that they don't enjoy.
Yeah, I agree. I think possibly the author you're talking about is Anna Vitone, who I interviewed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might have been Anna. Yeah, she's doing that with TikTok, so she's sharing little snippets from her chapters, and then it's sending people to her Substack where she's serializing her novel, and she's gained like hundreds of paid subscribers from doing that, which is amazing. So, yeah, I think and she really enjoys TikTok, which is the main thing there. She really loves the platform, and she's been able to grow a massive following there and do so well. So. I think that's so key. Unless you enjoy the platform, you're never going to be able to grow there. I think that's why Substack for me is so good because I just clicked with it straight away. As soon as I joined it, and properly got into it, I realized this is what feels like home on the internet for me. I know that's not like necessarily like something that I'm not going to change for my future. That might come a day when I move somewhere else potentially, but right now Substack is definitely a platform that I love, and I think it's great and it works so well. And yeah, I'm excited to be here right now for sure. Um, couple more questions, Sinem. First, this is a very, very important one. What is your favorite Taylor Swift album? Because I know you're a big Taylor Swift fan, so I'm gonna like randomly ask you that question. If you had to pick one album from hers, what would you pick?
I think I would pick Midnights, but
Midnight?
I'm a heartbroken Swiftie right now because my concerts got cancelled.
Yes, of course. Oh, bummer.
But yeah, I'd still go with Midnights.
Cool.
Or
Yeah.
or actually the latest one has a special place in my heart because it's been the first album that got launched since I became a fan.
Okay. Yeah, I think that album. I wouldn't call myself a Swiftie or anything like that, but my wife definitely is. Like she loves Taylor Swift so much. I think she loves her more than me. And we went to Canada in May and basically listened to that album, her most recent one, like non-stop the whole time we were driving around. So now, anytime I see pictures of Canada, I just hear Taylor Swift's like songs living in my head, which is kind of funny. But yeah, and the final question I have for you, back to writing again, is if you had one single piece of core advice to give to writers who want to make money writing online, want to monetize their words, and you get them one piece of advice, what would that be?
It's so cheesy, but don't be afraid to ask for the money is
Mm,
going to be the most important one because a lot of writers never make the decisions that will actually lead to money. But the truth is that people don't just randomly pay you for your writing. You
mm,
have to sell your work, even if it's not explicit. There is always some sort of sales and marketing happening. It's 100% easier to make money as a writer right now than it's ever been,
mm,
but you cannot just ignore the whole money making side and expect it to happen magically.
yeah.
If you
Oh,
do a good job and you enjoy what you're doing and your readers are enjoying what you're doing, you deserve to get paid for it. But you
mm,
actually have to stand up for yourself and also get a little uncomfortable figuring the marketing and sales side out if that's not what you typically like to do.
mm. What do you think kind of holds people back from that? So a lot of people are very reluctant to, raise their subscription prices on Substack or charge a certain amount for like a digital product that they've created or something like that. What's the biggest stumbling block there? What's holding people back, do you think, from making those steps?
I mean, sometimes it's fear of rejection, like what if I put it out there and nobody buys? But I have seen so many people actually having a real mindset problem saying, if I do these things, I'm not a real writer. I become a marketer.
Mm,
And yeah, we probably do because you have to market yourself if you want to make money writing. You can write for yourself and out of pure passion
mm,
without ever marketing if you don't care about building an audience or making money. That's perfectly fine. But if you do want to make money, then you have to be a marketer to a certain extent.
yeah.
And I think it's just a huge limiting belief if you're trying to decide what's a real writer and what isn't, because I don't care about being a real writer. I want to pass on what I know, and I like to do it through my writing, so
Mm,
that's why I write. Um,
yeah.
and there are a lot of people who write because it's the easiest form of communication, because they're good at it, because they have been avid readers since their childhood, and that's all okay. And you can I think it's the monetization side can be so much simpler than most people are aware of. You don't have to do all those crazy things. You don't have to do it all at the same time. You
Mm,
have to just like you have to find out what the one path is that eventually works out for you.
mm, yeah. 100%. And yeah, I think it's a real problem for people that there is this kind of separation between real writers and people who make money from writing, and it's almost like kind of like elitist kind of attitude sometimes to it, where if you're unless you're just writing for pure passion and for pure enjoyment and for the art of it, then you're not a real writer, you're a marketer, and that's something lesser, which isn't the case at all, obviously. And I think writers have to kind of get over that because it doesn't matter if you're a hugely successful novelist or if you're just someone who's starting out, you always have to market yourself anyway. Big five publications will not really help new writers that much if they take them on board. They still have to do their own marketing. They might throw like a little bit of money at them for an initial marketing campaign, but once that's done, it's done. Um, and you have to learn how to do that for yourself. So that's something I'm really into. Like I love trying to figure out how to market books, and it's a minefield. And it's a bit of a journey, and I'm always trying to figure out what works and what doesn't, and how can I tap into other people's talents, where I lack. For instance, like book talk on TikTok is something where I'm trying to get other people to create really good content for me because I'm not great at it on TikTok. It's not really what I'm comfortable with, but other people are fantastic at just getting in front of a camera and talking, and people that feel really good at doing that. But yeah, so yeah, learning to market yourself is a real issue for other writers, and I think if we can get over that and learn how to do that better, we will make more money, and then the more money we make, the more writing we can do, which is kind of what you want, I think, essentially. Um, but yeah, Sinem, it's been really good to chat to you today. Really enjoyed this conversation. I'm enjoying getting to know you better and getting to know Philip better too, and what some of you guys are doing on Substack and beyond. But yeah, where can people if you were sending people somewhere on the internet to check you guys out, is Substack the best place to find you, or is it better to go to your website, or what would you suggest?
Yeah, Substack is great right now because there's a lot happening. We're publishing a lot, being very up to date, so that would be great.
Perfect. That's great. Well, hope people check you out real soon, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And yeah, hopefully the weather gets better than it is here because it's still raining unfortunately outside. But yeah, it's good to chat to you, Cinnamon. I'll see you again at Substack real
Yeah,
soon.
thanks for having me.
No worries. Thank you.